So Robert F. Kennedy Jr., of course, is running for president in the Democratic primary. And he makes a point that I think is honestly undeniably correct. He's like, hey, man, this isn't fair. Now, we know that's true. Take a look at Marianne Williamson as well. You know, these are people who, regardless of what you think of RFK or Marianne, these are people who are running in what's supposed to be a democratic process, and they are systematically shut out. Now, I'm not saying that as a matter of opinion or conjecture. We have firsthand stories. I have people who I know high up in the Marianne Williamson campaign, and they've told me stories that I brought to you guys, that she'll have a speech planned to college Democrats, and then the college Democrats will get a call from the DNC and say, oh, no, she's not coming to speak to you. She's not coming to speak to you. They'll have events that get canceled at the last minute. They'll be systematically shut out of the media. You know, early on, there were some that would have her on, but it would be like the third-rate shows on CNN or MSNBC on the streaming platform, which nobody watches. The only ones that'll have them on is Fox News. Now, understand, I'm not naive. Everybody knows why Fox News would want these guys on, simply as a divide and conquer strategy, to have like, hey, let's attack Biden through a Democratic vessel. I don't care how you're attacking Biden as long as you're attacking Biden, which is why, you know, Fox News and right-wing media outlets have sort of embraced Marianne and RFK. But Marianne is smart enough to know the game that's being played. And when she goes on there, she doesn't play their game. She says, here's why you should vote for me. And by the way, yeah, I have issues with Biden, but also let's talk about all my issues with Trump and the Republicans. She doesn't play their game even. And by the way, that's probably why they've had her on less, because they realize she sees through the game, right? So if CNN shuts you out, MSNBC shuts you out, you can't give speeches. You know, you can't talk to the people you need to talk to. Remember, she was supposed to get access to voting data, and that was blocked as well by the DNC. So there's no debate about it. They are unquestionably being unfair in their approach here. Now, some of you might say, well, hold on, well, isn't that an argument for running third party? But my reaction to that is, however rigged it is right now against people running within the Democratic Party, it's even more rigged for people running outside the Democratic Party, because they don't even have something like ballot access in all 50 states, which is bare minimum. Okay, and then also there's not even the theoretical chance or possibility of having a debate, whereas there is within the party, even though they are shutting that route out right now too. So, and even given all that, you know, somebody running third party, look at Cornel West. Cornel West is even though he's a bigger name than Marianne in politics, he's polling lower than Marianne and RFK. And I think that's simply because RFK and Marianne are running as Democrats. Even with the media shutting them out, even with all of these unfair things that are going on behind the scenes, they've still managed to get 10% and 20% respectively, right? And even in bad polls, it's like 13% and 6%, which is more than any Green Party candidate, Libertarian Party candidate, etc. Anyway, we don't need to go through that. You guys know the gist of my rant on that one. That's not the point of this segment. The point of this segment is to say RFK Jr. is now teasing something else. So he is running as a Democrat, but maybe that's going to change. Let's see what he has to say.
Hi, everybody. I'm going to be in Philadelphia on October 9th to make a major announcement at the very birthplace of our nation. I'm not going to tell you right now exactly what that announcement will be. I can say, though, that if you've been waiting to come to one of my public events, this will be the one to come to. I'll be speaking about a sea change in American politics and what your part and my part is in that change. A lot of Americans who had previously given up any hope that real change would ever come through the American electoral process have begun to find new hope in my candidacy. And I understand the deeply felt concern that people have about the way corruption has overtaken our government. It's in the executive branch, it's in Congress, it's in the leadership of both political parties. And so some people feel a kind of cynicism alongside the hope, or they lose hope entirely because they've been disappointed so many times. I want to tell you now what I've come to understand after 6 months of campaigning. There is a path to victory. The hope we are feeling isn't some kind of trick of the mind. We all recognize that there's a genuine possibility of national transformation, and its source is the goodness of the American people. Our government may be crooked, but our people are kind, brave, and caring. That goodness is stronger than the divisions that are keeping us all apart. I see it every day on the campaign trail, and the more I see it, the more I trust it. And the more I trust it, the more the path to victory becomes visible. So how are we going to win against the established Washington interests? It's not through playing the game by the corrupt rules that the corrupt powers and the vested interests have rigged to keep us all in their thrall. Instead, we're going to have to rewrite the assumptions and change the habits of American politics. We're going to tap into a mighty surge of people power to reclaim an honest, peaceful, just, and prosperous America. So I am inviting you to join me in Philadelphia on October 9th. There I'll share with you our path to the White House and how we can all participate in healing our nation.
So there are a bunch of articles now that are out there saying he's about to announce a run for president as an independent. So in other words, skipping the primary process, I guess, pulling out of the Democratic primary and going straight to the general election to run as an independent, where now you would have a situation where it is whoever the Democratic nominee is going to be, overwhelmingly likely Joe Biden, Cornel West as a Green Party candidate, very likely Donald Trump as a Republican, and now RFK Jr. as an independent. Interesting. So, let's be clear about what's likely to happen in this situation. Okay? Does he have a chance of winning? No. It is literally like 0%. If I'm being kind, it's 0.001%. But he really has no chance of winning. So then the question is, what effect will he have on the race? Well, that is interesting because it might not be the thing you intuitively first think of. Virtually all the polling at this point in time shows that if he runs in the general, he takes more votes from the Republican than he does from the Democrat. Now, again, that's not my opinion. I'm just going based off the data and the numbers here. Now, early on, I'm sure that wasn't the case. Because early on, look, he's a Kennedy. The Kennedys are not only American royalty, they are Democratic Party royalty. So the default assumption is, well, of course, he's going to get more votes from Democrats. But ever since he's been on the campaign trail, the people he's ingratiated himself with, the arguments that he makes, the issues that are of primary concern to him, these are all things that more are in alignment with what the right believes. And so now his favorability rating among the right is pretty significant, and it's plummeted off a cliff on the Democratic side. Now, look, is it a guarantee he would take more votes from Trump or the Republicans? I wouldn't say it's a guarantee, but is it likely? Yes. I'd say it's like an 80% chance he would take more votes from Trump and the Republicans than he would from Biden and the Democrats. But here's another interesting curveball to throw at you. Guys, I think he knows that. He even mentioned it. He did a podcast. I think it was with Theo Von, the comedian, and there was a clip floating around Twitter where Kennedy himself says that if I were to run, I'd take more votes from Trump. And what's interesting is, for all of my massive disagreements with RFK, he has been very clear, I'm not a fan of Trump at all. In fact, when he was asked, hey, would you be Trump's running mate? His reaction was a very fast and unequivocal, not at all. No, I would not be Trump's running mate, not in a million years. And so you look at that, and look, I'm speculating, now I'm putting my own conspiracy hat on, but he might purposefully be running to try to hand the election over to Joe Biden. He might purposely be doing that. Now, of course, there's also the thing of like, well, this whole process on the Democratic side has been unfair. And so now you screwed me, I'm going to screw you. But again, in a roundabout way, even though at face value it looks like that's what's happening, in a roundabout way, the data right now shows it is likely that him getting in there would take more votes from the Republican and would help out Joe Biden. And look, in a weird way, it might be a bit of a balancing act here because the polls right now show that a Cornel West candidacy could take some votes from Biden. And if you have Cornel West taking votes from Biden, but you have RFK taking votes from Trump, maybe that makes it a little bit more of a coin flip-like scenario, which is what it would have been if neither RFK or Cornel West were running. So, look, I'd be very interested to know exactly what he's thinking and why he's doing it. What his public reason is, we know, but what his private reason is could be different. I mean, look, maybe it really is just about, the cover story, the thing he's going to tell everybody publicly, that the system is rigged, the system is biased, this wasn't a fair process, and so now I'm going to run and do it a different way. It's possible that that's all that went on in his head. It's also possible there's, a realization that, hey, if I run, I could hurt Trump, and I kind of want to hurt Trump. That absolutely is possible. And, some ancillary evidence on that front. Ralph Nader has been basically a third-party left-wing hero for a very, very long time. He's the guy who ended up getting us seatbelts, right? I think he was one of the main factors that got us, like, OSHA and the EPA. Like, he was a crusader for left-wing causes, and then, of course, he ran for president a number of times as a third-party candidate. And, he happened to run in the election with Gore and Bush, and there's a lot of people who blame Nader for that. I don't think the evidence and the data backs that up. I really don't think he played the role of a spoiler effect. But even Ralph Nader at this late date has now come out and said, I'm voting for Democrats, and I'm telling everybody, please go vote for Democrats. And his reasoning is, I think when we look at Trump, when we look at the MAGA Republicans, when we look at the far right, it's a genuine fascist movement. And I don't know what the breaking point was for him, but, I have my suspicion that it was probably January 6th and the attempted insurrection and the fake elector slate and the idea that the peaceful transfer of power for the first time in our lifetimes is now genuinely in question. You have a guy who absolutely has a dictator instinct, a guy who openly says we need to suspend the Constitution. This is what Trump says. And so Ralph Nader looks at that, and even though he's a Green Party guy and he's a leftist and he's no fan of the Democrats, now he's coming out and saying we have to defeat Trump and the Republic. We have to do it. So, and he's offered to help Democrats, help Joe Biden. Hey, let me help you win the White House because we can't have the Republicans win. That's Ralph Nader, man. And nobody could say, oh, he sold out or whatever. No, his whole life is about left-wing causes. He had a genuine change of heart looking at the political landscape, right? And so it's possible RFK is having a similar thing going on in his mind where he's like, hey, if I run as an independent and it helps Biden, then by all means, I'm going to run. Because he wants Trump to be defeated. So, I mean, look, it'd be really interesting, right? The most successful independent run we've seen in the modern era is Ross Perot. Ross Perot got, nearly 20% of the popular vote. And he won 0 electoral college votes. So, how good would RFK do? I don't know. I doubt it would be as good as Ross Perot did, but it could certainly have a giant impact on the election. And as we all know, Ross Perot running really ended up taking the election away from George H.W. Bush and handing it over to Clinton. And you could see a similar dynamic here. Look, I'd love to know what's going on in his head. I'd love to know what conversations he's having behind the scenes about why he's doing what he's doing. Maybe we'll never know, but in a weird roundabout way, this could be very, very good news for Biden and the Democrats. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.